Welcome to UXL, where you can learn new skills anytime and anywhere. Visit uxl.com to explore our full course selection. This lesson is part of a larger course. Check the video description below for a link to the full course where you can enroll. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe. For your convenience, the course cover displayed on your screen provides the complete course title and lesson title. Let's proceed with the lesson. Lesson: Human Rights in Global Employment Practices. Human rights in global employment practices represent a critical intersection of labor law and ethical standards. The imperative to uphold human rights in employment is underscored by the increasing globalization of labor markets and the complex web of international labor standards established to protect workers worldwide. This lesson examines the principles underpinning these standards, the challenges in their implementation, and the role of various stakeholders in promoting and ensuring the protection of human rights in global employment practices. The foundation of human rights in employment is rooted in several international instruments, most notably the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948. Article 23 of the UDHR explicitly states that everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and to protection against unemployment. Additionally, Article 24 asserts the right to rest and leisure, including reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay. These principles are further elaborated in the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which underscores the right to work under just and favorable conditions, the right to form and join trade unions, and the right to Social Security. The International Labor Organization, a specialized agency of the United Nations, has been at the forefront of establishing international labor standards aimed at promoting decent work and protecting human rights in the workplace. The ILO's Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work, adopted in 1998, identifies four core principles: freedom of association and the right to collective bargaining, the elimination of forced or compulsory labor, the abolition of child labor, and the elimination of discrimination in respect of employment and occupation. These principles are enshrined in 8 fundamental ILO conventions, which are binding on member states that have ratified them and serve as benchmarks for evaluating national labor practices. Despite the robust framework of international labor standards, significant challenges persist in their implementation and enforcement. One of the primary obstacles is the disparity in economic development and labor market conditions across different countries. In many developing nations, economic pressures and insufficient regulatory frameworks contribute to widespread violations of labor rights, including forced labor, child labor, and unsafe working conditions. For example, the Global Slavery Index estimates that 40.3 million people were victims of modern slavery in 2016, with forced labor accounting for 24.9 million of these cases. This highlights the urgent need for stronger international cooperation and support to enhance the capacity of developing countries to uphold labor standards. Multinational corporations play a pivotal role in shaping global employment practices, given their extensive operations across diverse jurisdictions. The conduct of MNCs can significantly impact labor rights, particularly in countries with weak enforcement mechanisms. There have been numerous instances where MNCs have been implicated in labor rights abuses, such as poor working conditions, inadequate wages, and suppression of union activities. For instance, the Rana Plaza disaster in Bangladesh in 2013, which resulted in the deaths of over 1,100 garment workers, starkly illustrated the dire consequences of inadequate labor protections and corporate negligence. To address these challenges, various initiatives and guidelines have been developed to promote responsible corporate behavior and ensure respect for human rights in global supply chains. The United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, endorsed by the UN Human Rights Council in 2011, provide a global standard for preventing and addressing the risk of adverse human rights impacts linked to business activities. The UNGPs are based on three pillars: the state duty to protect human rights, the corporate responsibility to respect human rights, and the need for greater access to remedy for victims of business-related abuses. The principles emphasize that businesses should conduct human rights due diligence to identify, prevent, mitigate, and account for how they address their impacts on human rights. Moreover, the OECD guidelines for multinational enterprises, which are aligned with the UNGPs, offer recommendations for responsible business conduct in areas such as employment and industrial relations, human rights, environment, and anti-corruption. These guidelines encourage MNCs to contribute to economic, environmental, and social progress with a view to achieving sustainable development. The implementation of these guidelines is supported by national contact points in adhering countries, which facilitate dialogue and mediation between businesses and stakeholders. Civil society organizations, trade unions, and workers' rights advocates also play a crucial role in promoting human rights in global employment practices. These groups engage in advocacy, monitoring, and reporting on labor rights violations, often bringing attention to issues that may otherwise go unnoticed. For example, the Clean Clothes Campaign, a global network of labor unions and non-governmental organizations, works to improve working conditions and empower workers in the global garment and sportswear industries. Through campaigns, research, and advocacy, the Clean Clothes Campaign has been instrumental in raising awareness about labor rights abuses and pushing for greater corporate accountability. Enforcement of labor standards and protection of human rights in employment also depend on the effectiveness of national labor laws and institutions. Countries with strong labor laws and enforcement mechanisms are generally better positioned to uphold international labor standards and protect workers' rights. For instance, countries like Germany and Sweden, which have comprehensive labor laws and robust enforcement institutions, typically exhibit higher levels of labor rights protection and better working conditions. Conversely, in countries where labor laws are weak or inadequately enforced, workers are more vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. The role of international trade agreements in shaping labor standards and human rights in employment has also gained prominence in recent years. Trade agreements increasingly include labor provisions aimed at ensuring that trade liberalization does not come at the expense of workers' rights. For example, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement includes a chapter on labor that commits the parties to uphold labor rights as recognized by the ILO Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work. Additionally, the agreement includes provisions for labor inspections, dispute resolution, and enforcement mechanisms to address labor rights violations. In conclusion, the protection of human rights in global employment practices is a multifaceted issue that requires concerted efforts from various stakeholders, including governments, businesses, civil society, and international organizations. The framework of international labor standards, as established by instruments such as the UDHR, ICCR, and ILO conventions, provides a solid foundation for promoting decent work and safeguarding workers' rights. However, the effective implementation and enforcement of these standards remain a significant challenge, particularly in developing countries and in the context of global supply chains. Initiatives such as the UNGPs, OECD guidelines, and labor provisions in trade agreements represent important steps towards enhancing corporate accountability and ensuring respect for human rights in employment. Ultimately, the realization of human rights in global employment practices hinges on the collective commitment and action of all stakeholders to create a fair and just world of work. This concludes the lesson. We trust you found this video informative and engaging. To enroll in the complete course, please use the link provided in the description below. At UExcel, we are committed to your learning journey. Each course offers a certificate of completion, online support, and downloadable resource files to enhance your experience. If you found our content valuable, we invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to supporting your continued pursuit of knowledge.